Hello and welcome back to my channel. And no, this is not clickbait. This actually happened. Let's turn back in time a little bit. So in December 2012, I was living in London and it was way before my spiritual journey to consciousness and awakening. I was just coming out of like my party era and it was kind of like the trail end. I was introduced by a good friend of mine whilst living in London, a male friend who was into the trading world, to this new phenomenon called Bitcoin. Me being me, I'm super curious about anything that's kind of taboo or unorthodox. I always have been. I'm a Sagittarius and I've always been super curious into things that are not mainstream. He told me this phenomenon called Bitcoin is going to be worth a lot of money at some point in the future. It's a digital currency and it's going to be worth a lot in the future. If I was you, I would buy a lot now. And then he also told me that you can also buy illegal stuff online with it. So like I say, it was at the trail end of my naughty years, if you like, of taking things that I shouldn't be taking. And once he told me that I could actually buy illegal stuff online with this currency, I was like, okay, cool. You've got me hooked now. At that point in my life, I had quite a lot of savings. I was like, okay, cool, I'm in, I'll buy 100. I had no idea. Like I say, it was about $12,000 at that point, and it gave me this digital cash that I was like, okay, cool. I can buy anything I want on the dark web. Now, he also introduced me to a website called Silk Road, and I was super obsessed. Like, I was just like, wow, what is this thing? This is crazy. And also knowing that this website wasn't contributing well to my newly found healthier life, but I was like, wow, this thing is so easy and so readily available that I was just like, I can't refuse this. And so instead of saving the Bitcoin, I confess that I actually used it, every single penny of it, to buy certain things on Silk Road in December 2012. Let's fast forward another few years. Bitcoin starts to rise. And at this point, I wasn't into trading or crypto at all. And I kind of let go of the idea of what I'd done. I didn't even think about it. I'd let go of that story completely, and it wasn't even something that was in my mind anymore. It wasn't an issue. So fast forward a few years, Bitcoin starts to rise. The story of me spending 100 Bitcoin on Silk Road had completely gone from my mind. Like, I wasn't even thinking about it. It didn't even register as anything at all. I just carried on with my life. And then as time went on, I started to see here, there, and everywhere that Bitcoin was rising. And it was rising pretty damn well. It went to $10,000, which from $12.50 was a huge increase. Now I was like, holy shit, this would have been so much if I'd have just kept hold of it. Today, fast forward, 2025, if I'd have kept that 100 Bitcoin, I would have had $10.7 million in my exchange or on my ledger. This was a really big pill, so to speak, that I had to swallow, and I had to accept that this was a part of my journey, a part of my soul's journey that chose that path. And I believe in divine timing, let's say my soul wanted to choose a different route and it actually wanted me to be a very rich millionaire at this point in my life would have been completely different. My story would have been completely different. My path would have been completely different. I, as a person, would be completely different. So do I regret it? I actually don't. And I know that might sound really weird to some of you, but I actually don't regret it, because I had to accept that that was the path that my soul had chosen, that I wasn't meant to be this millionaire overnight with the Bitcoin that I'd spent in 2025. Why am I so grateful for this journey? Because I would not be who I am today had that journey not conspired in the way that it could have done. And what happened is in that time, I was seeing how successful Bitcoin alone was becoming, and it sparked my interest into this world way more than probably if I'd have just kept it in there, even though that would have been amazing. What it did is it actually sparked my interest into the trading world and into cryptocurrency. And I was like, that's what started my journey, and that's what made me way more resilient to this industry. And also way more respecting of this industry and how intensely brutal it can be, but also shifting my mindset to how intensely profitable and incredible it can also be. This is what got me onto the journey of trading and into investing. And also, it was a huge part of my spiritual journey, because not only did I lose money in the story I've just shared, but I also spent a few grand a few years later, we're talking 2018, in XRP. Now, I made a huge mistake with that again. I sold it when it went down. I didn't have a clue what was going on, and I sold it. And had I kept that, that would have also been absolutely massive now. There are countless stories I can share over the last 12, 13, 14 years of particular rug pulls that I've put loads of money on. Also pyramid and Ponzi schemes that also I injected thousands into, which also ended up being rug pulls. I could go on and on and on. And why am I sharing this with you? Because you're probably thinking you've called yourself the conscious trader, and these stories are probably the most unconscious stories. But had I not gone through all of those things, and I really do believe it's a rite of passage for anyone in this world of investing and trading, especially day trading, swing trading, I really believe that if we've chosen to go on this path, you have to experience that level of shame and pain. It's literally a rite of passage. Very, very, very few people come into this industry and whack a load of money, or even a little bit of money, and then hit 1,000 X's. There's very, very few people who make that win. My goal with sharing this story, if any of this resonates with you at all, is just to accept your journeys and accept your losses and use your losses as wisdom to move forward, and use them as strength and power and resilience. Only the strongest will survive. That's why so many people fade away from this path. That's why so many people fade away from the spiritual path. So many people leave the spiritual path when they know that they've got to go in the darkest parts of themselves in order to push through into their light. So many people fail to get through the shit in order to get to the light because it's so freaking uncomfortable. But as a trader and as an investor, investors obviously a little bit more safe, but obviously people lose money in investing as well. But as a trader, especially on a spiritual conscious path to awakening within yourself and to creating yourself a life of freedom and financial stability, fully autonomous, it's honestly a rite of passage to have to go through all of these steps. Maybe not to the level that I did. I've gone to the deepest, darkest points within my trading journey, and it was only when I realized how much I had to respect this industry. And by the way, that didn't put me off. The amount of dips I've had in this journey is insane. And most people would think, like, how are you still in it? But it's because I know and I knew that I would get my head around it, and I would get my psychology around it, and I would get my thoughts and my emotions around it. And I did not want to be defeated. And like I said in previous videos, it was only in February this year that I started to become profitable after 16 solid months of having a mentor a couple of years prior to that, and consistently learning every single day, going through the pitfalls, going through the hard times, going through the depression, going through the anxiety. And I knew that I could do it. Yes, I'm still on my journey. I'm absolutely nowhere near where I want to be. And I'm not claiming to be anywhere really successful with it yet. I'm still on my own journey. However, I have started to become profitable this year, and I do know how to manage my emotions with it. I don't get too excited when I win. I don't get too excited or sad or depressed anymore when I make a loss. I don't blow accounts anymore. I haven't blown any of my real accounts or my funded accounts. And I've really come to this place of calm within my practice with it. And it's reflecting in the journey that I have within myself. And maybe that's to do with age. Everyone says life begins at this age. Maybe that's because you just have this newfound realization about who you are and all the things that contribute to becoming successful in this game. But it's extremely correlative to everything that's going on in life as well. So if any of this resonates, or if you have anything similar in your journey that you'd like to share with me, I'd love to hear it. And of course, I'd love to help you out in any way I can. Please drop a comment down below and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Please like and share if this story resonates. And I'll see you on the next one.